tell me why you chose to come to BYU. I'm glad you have.
Sir.
Why BYU? Today we're starting, and we have Keanu. He tells me I can call him new. He's big enough that I'm going to respect whatever he's going to allow me to do. But we're so grateful to have Keanu Tanuvasa with us. Keanu, welcome, because you are one of our newest Cougars.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me, not just on the podcast, but especially to join the team, the family.
Oh, my heavens. We are so excited because literally, as I watched that Utah game, it seemed like it was you. I'm sure you had teammates that were, but sometimes you were wreaking havoc on that offensive line of BYU. And BYU has a decent offensive line. So
yes, sir.
It's a good game.
It was a great game. The intensity was amazing. I told the boys over there that it was one of my favorite games. I played in a Rose Bowl. I played in a Pac-12 championship, a lot of big games, but that was intense.
It was. And man, you have this infectious smile. How can a guy that's so, I'm going to call you brutal. I mean, you're tough on that defensive line.
Sir.
You look like you could be my friend.
I'd like to be. Right, we're getting there.
This is great.
I don't know. I think, whatever you do, you should do it 100%. When I'm going to be brutal, I want to be 100% brutal.
And brutal might not be the right word, but,
right.
Tough, tenacious, effective at being a defensive lineman.
Yes, sir. So I just think, when I want to smile and I want to enjoy meeting new people, doing awesome things like joining this podcast, I just want to be 100% in, and that's what I try to do.
Perfect. Keanu, again, welcome.
Thank you.
I, as a Cougar fan, am so pumped that you're part of our team. Now, trust me, Kyle Whittingham was a teammate of mine. I really like Kyle Whittingham.
Great man.
I consider him a friend. So I'm not going to badmouth Utah a bit, but I'm sure glad you're on the right side.
I don't think I could ever badmouth Utah. I love that place, and I love Coach Whittingham. Amazing staff, amazing people, and an amazing culture. Definitely blessed my life.
They've had tremendous success. When you and I'm gonna, maybe half of my people that listen or talk or whatever, they're gonna be upset with me here. But and I know Coach Whittingham was an assistant coach to Urban Meyer back then. But when they went into that Sugar Bowl and beat Alabama so well, I felt good. I mean, that's probably before you're born, though.
Yeah. I've heard and I've seen the stats, and I've heard about that season. But no, that's a big thing to happen, to beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl.
And ever since then, Utah has unfortunately had BYU's number most of the time. So it's kind of fun to feel the tide balancing out a little bit here.
For sure. Yeah, it's a blessing, and it's great to see the success of this team, of joining this team.
Why, and I've purposefully not read the articles or knowing that we were going to talk, but tell me why you chose to come to BYU. I'm glad you have.
Sir.
Why BYU?
And I think it's interesting, most people that have a podcast or things like that are often engaged on social media and already have their understanding of what people are saying and what critics are saying and fans. And
I know a little bit.
There's a lot of noise.
Exactly.
Ultimately, there's a few main things that I point out. First and foremost is I truly believe that I was guided by my Savior, my Heavenly Father, in the sense of what's best for my future to come. Not necessarily all in football, but the connection and opportunities that are here at BYU are difficult to find in other places. The development of more than just my skills on the football field, but who I was off the football field in the business situation, in developing relationships and connections and integrating with people who have these opportunities that can ultimately help me and my fiance and my future family that I'm building and all of these things. Their education system is huge. I love seeing how broad it is, how detailed it is, and how much within the first weeks that I've been here, I feel that I'm truly developing and becoming a smarter individual of being a part of that. And so I think there's so many things that come and go into it with the way BYU performs, their love and learn nature, their humble and hungry attitude. All of these things are things that I love. I loved to learn about in my process of finding a new home, and now being a part of it has just, it's made it feel so certain that this was the right decision.
Interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because the love and learn, we had Raider DeMooney. Mm-hmm. Do you know Raider very well?
Yeah, we're really good friends.
And anyway, Raider was here yesterday, and we were talking about love and learn. And again, as an ex-football player, I respect the fact that, you're an individual, you're a human being, you're trying to be a good person. Mm-hmm. In between the whistles, you're going to be, you're playing hard.
Oh yeah.
Life is a give and take, rough and tumble type thing. But after that whistle, we're still brothers. We're still friends.
For sure.
In fact, I remember the days when we played Utah, and the fans, almost still back then hated each other, but it was
that rivalry.
It's a strong rivalry,
For sure.
But we on the team, it felt like we were friends and respectful. Mm-hmm. Not like we had this rival hatred, but more. Is it still that way? I mean, you're all kind of friends.
I would say so. I would say I know. I've known so many guys on BYU's team, and I have a lot of respect for who they are, and how they perform, both on and off the field. They're great individuals. But definitely, I mean, this year, that was my thing. Was I treated them? It was a different game. I didn't treat them as if they were the worst people. I hated them.
Right.
But I wanted to win.
Of course.
I was going to compete and I was going to play physical. But
you did, dang it.
I tried.
Oh, man, you did.
But at the end of the game, then it's, good for them. I hope you guys go far. And there's film of me high-fiving and hugging a lot of their players. And that's what it was. The game's over. I'm heartbroken, right? I wish I gave everything into that game to win. And I hate to lose. But best of luck for you guys. Congrats. I'm not going to disrespect you and spit in your face and do all of that.
Good for you. In fact, that's the real spirit of sports, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be the chew on glass and eat nails kind of guy,
right,
to be a good football player.
For sure.
In fact, you're a living example that you can be a happy, good person.
Right.
Tell me about serving your mission.
Man, I was so I'm from California.
What part?
Orange County.
Okay.
I went to Mission Viejo High School.
Wow.
Yes,
nice.
Sir. And so I got my call in Mission Viejo, where we were living at the time, to serve in Canada. And I was super excited. And then this was during the COVID time. So I opened it with very few people in my house, surrounded by a little bit of group of friends. And I was like, hopefully I get to go because COVID's going on.
Yeah.
So a couple weeks later, my dad is working for the church and is asked to move out.
What does he
Utah.
do? What was his job?
He's an institute director.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
And so he moves out here for his job. So the whole family moves, and they live in Highland, here in Highland in Utah.
Wow. I didn't know that. Okay.
So we're living in Highland, Utah, and I start the online MTC. And a week in, I get this reassignment letter. And it says, hey, Elder Tanuvasa, you've been reassigned to serve in the Provo mission. And I was like, I didn't think they had missionaries there.
Yeah, like why?
I thought everyone was a member out here. The culture of California is very different. You think of Utah and it's all members.
You think that, right?
Yeah.
And yet the Provo and Orem missions are, you guys are busy.
They're large in stature in opportunities to teach.
Yeah.
And that was my favorite thing. I found a lot of difficulty in my first couple weeks of why am I here?
I can't imagine.
But over time, that became the greatest blessing to my life. The members, the non-members, the culture of Utah. It was a blessing to see how bought into their faith people are here. And I loved it.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I mean, it's interesting to me that the missions in Utah are very successful.
Yeah.
So you tell me, you're a missionary. Why, when so few people relative to the whole population are not members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, why do you have so much success? You were kind of alluding to that.
Yeah. I think it has to do with the amount of people that are around them that are striving to make a good example and do good things. So, I mean, there is a very minimal ratio of non-member to member, right? It's very small percentage, but that means there's a lot of heavy percentage of people that are willing to help, people that are willing to go out of their way to say, hey, let me fellowship this person. Let me be kind to this person. Let me find where I can serve them and add value and not just teach them, but to be a good neighbor. And eventually that leads down creating these societies that are filled with joy and passion and love that then leads these non-members who have moved from California or wherever the case may be to have this level of curiosity to say, why is it like this here? And that's just that little spark that they need to take them down that path.
Did you see, you're from California, and I love the culture of California. The church is a little bit different in the states outside of California than it is here.
Sir.
What did you, as a Californian, now missionary in Provo, Utah, what did you see? I mean, I guess I'm leading. I hope that the efforts of your member friends weren't just to help you baptize somebody, but in fact were more of long-term examples.
Yeah. I think that was a huge thing. That's what created the opportunities to have such success. It wasn't let's get this person baptized so that we can get a statistic. It was let's help this person change their life because it's changed my life. And that's what was such an amazing blessing that I saw from the members out here was they lived the gospel, not just because it was what they were told to do, but because it was something that they realized was a blessing in their life.
Interesting.
And so that was able to trickle down into those non-member lives who didn't understand why they had such joy.
Were you already committed to Utah when you went on your mission?
Yes, sir.
You were?
Yes, sir.
And then the church called you to Provo.
I know. There's a little bit of...
Was Kyle a little bit worried? Like, you're going to...
Not...
I mean, maybe it was Coach Whittingham,
He probably was. He maybe didn't verbalize it, but he might have been.
Are you familiar with Andrew Gentry?
I am.
All right. So his story is that he was serving a mission in Orem, Utah. He was actually on his mission. And I don't know who he had committed to.
Michigan.
Already?
I think so. I could be wrong.
You're probably right. But maybe he was having second thoughts because Jim Harbaugh got permission to come meet with him on his mission.
Crazy.
He said, come on, where's Coach Sataki? He should...
We did have interactions on the mission, nothing with in terms of tampering but just because I was in Provo and I was working with some guys on the team actually teaching members of the team.
Wow.
And so I was around the football team. I was around Coach Satake. I saw them all.
What a cool example or experience for you, because Utah has obviously been one of the top performing football teams
for sure
of the last couple decades.
Mm-hmm.
And their culture is obviously, I don't know it as well as I know the BYU culture, but obviously it's strong.
Yeah.
And yet you had some experience to work with some of the BYU players and the I don't know, you ran into Coach Sataki.
Yep. Yeah.
So anyway, that's what a unique experience.
It was amazing. It was very cool. I loved understanding and learning the culture then on my mission, right? With the limited understanding we could have, because obviously we're fulfilling our mission duties. But then to go to finish and to spend the last 3 years at Utah with an amazing structured culture that has a great reputation.
Sure.
And now to come back and to be back in Provo and to be with BYU, but fully immersed in it. And now I get to feel the joy of of learning it again and remembering, oh, I remember how this felt. I remember how these guys treated me. And obviously there's different teammates and, new people that have come into the program. But to see that only over time the culture has developed and gotten stronger, and now I get to be a part of it is amazing.
Keanu, or I'll call you New.
Sir.
We're new friends now. And I tell you what, when I'm going down Compton, California, I want you
Yes, sir.
with me. All right?
I got you. You let me know.
But when you compare those cultures, I came here in the 1970s. And the church, we hadn't even had the revelation on the priesthood, And yet my roommate was and is still one of my best friends, Danny Frazier, a black guy from Utah,
Sir.
who couldn't hold the priesthood yet was a member of the church at the time, 1978. And I saw the struggles. He was a great athlete. But being a non-member or being a member of the church, but African American, and going to places like Wyoming, or New Mexico, or we played in Southern California, we played in Wisconsin, we played in Texas. Sometimes he would take some abuse, because the church was taking abuse back then, And so the culture, it wasn't as easy to assimilate. I'm from a very diverse Rancho Cordova, California. And I came to a school that we had blacks, we had Polynesians, we had white dudes, we had non-members, we had members. And we all were a unified team. I love my teammates. Offense, defense, you know how it is in spring training. Offense hates defense, defense hates offense, but
Right.
But by the fall, you're coming together. I think you guys have taken it to a next level. I'm talking about BYU, of assimilating every culture and respecting your religion, your faith, your background, where area that you came from. You've only been here a little while. What do you feel that way? What do you see?
I definitely, that is one thing that I've seen and wanted to add value to as being a part of this team, in the sense of their unity goes far beyond the lines of football. It doesn't stop when you walk off the field, that they're brothers, to the end of the line. And that is regardless of their mistakes, their shortcomings, what they're good at, what they're not good at. And again, going back to, the color of their skin, their beliefs, we love, the culture of Christ is to love. And that's what the culture of BYU is getting deeper at. And that doesn't mean that you just love a certain amount of people or a certain type of people. The culture of Christ loved all people. That's who Jesus was.
You're right.
And so that's what the team is doing, is they're loving all people, diversity and all, adversity and all, whenever they're fighting all this controversy like your friend was, your roommate. But that love shines through, regardless of what the status is of the world or what the world's saying is supposed to look like. Love is Brigham Young.
Awesome.
Yes, sir.
You can't say it better, brother. Good job.
I hope so.
And it's true. I mean, Jesus was that way. I mean, the people who had made terrible mistakes in their lives, the people who everyone else shunned, those are the people he went toward.
Yeah.
And I love how you guys are doing that, and yet you're still bringing it on every down.
Oh, I think that's the biggest motivating factor. I think some people think you're motivated by fear or aggression or, wow, these guys are so just physical and angry and oh my goodness, But what really gets scary is a team that's unified regardless of the outcome.
That's right.
They love each other deeper than the play. They love so much that that's what strikes fear into the opponent. They're like, man, I don't know if I trust the guy next to me that much, but us, we're that connected that then we're not hitting one person. You're hitting all 11 on the field at one time.
All right. So now, before we met, or, right when we met, when you came here, you said you were interested in a future maybe in broadcasting or podcasting, and you like podcasting. Eli, we got to hire this guy. He's good. He can No, you're expressing a message that's true. That hits you right here. Like,
Yes, sir.
I don't care if you're playing for BYU or Wisconsin or USC, which leads me to another question. You entered the transfer portal. So all of a sudden you're telling the world, hey, I'm interested. How long were you in the transfer portal?
About a week.
About a week.
Yes, sir.
So everyone in the world was saying, come here and here's what we're going to do.
There was a lot of noise, a lot of, and that's an honor. It's a blessing to be wanted.
It is.
Some guys are not as fortunate because they enter the portal and they didn't get playing time with the school they were previously at, and so they're not as wanted, and maybe they sit in a little longer, and coaches don't give them the look that they want. But I was blessed to, be bombarded in the fashion that I did by a lot of schools.
Were you tempted?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think anything you do with that big of a decision.
Of course.
And there was a lot being thrown at me. A lot of things that I realized that my natural man, that naturally would be enticing to him.
Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah.
And man, I mean, seriously, at my age, you don't ask people their age, but you're a young man. You've been on a mission, so I'm assuming you're 21, 22.
22.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And 22-year-old young man, Keanu. When I was playing, I got married my, what was it? Was it my sophomore year after my mission? And my wife and I, back then, I mean, you had a full, what we called grant and aid, call it a scholarship.
Yeah.
And then you got a per diem, I forget. I want to say it was like $125. Now that's before inflation.
Right.
And back in the 70s and 80s. But we were driving my grandmother's car. It had a big dent. The people that hit my car had to pay insurance money to us. And we didn't get the dent fixed because that insurance money helped us make it through the next month.
Right, right.
Now you guys have what's called NIL.
Yes, sir.
Name, image, and likeness. You get, constitutionally, you get to, because you have this particular talent, and I wish it was because of all of your talents, because you have a whole bunch of talents. It's obvious. A lot more than football. So don't ever sell yourself short.
Sir.
But here you're able to make a pretty dang good living while you're in school.
Yeah.
Is it hard to, keep up the grades? Is it hard to work at your school knowing that, hey, man, I'm worth quite a bit of money?
I think it can have that effect. And I'm grateful that for my mission, right? You develop a lot of maturity on your mission. And I think it would be harder for guys that are 18, 19 years old. They're coming out of high school, right? And they're getting paid this absurd amount of money.
Which seems like an absurd amount. I was in finance.
True. Yeah.
Money is relative, and what seems like a lot of money ends up not being that much when you say, okay, I'm going to use a fun word, amortize. I'm going to amortize the value of but it's a great income.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, come on.
Stability, definitely.
Yes.
But it definitely, I think that's why, I love the phrase, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so ultimately, when you build this culture or character that you want to live in your life, it's regardless of what the income is, regardless of if the fans love or hate me, regardless of what people say, I could stay consistent in my religion, in my relationships, in my classes, and so I think that's where I'm blessed to be at, is I understand how to stay consistent across the board. And that's what matters. But there's still definitely those impacts of, being swayed that, man, I'm making this much money. I'm okay now. That's the natural man.
I don't need to take that final.
Right. Right. I'm going to get paid. So, it's easier to not wake up. But that's where that consistency of character has to come in.
Awesome. I bet you've had some opportunities to mentor some of those younger guys who don't have the life experiences, then I'll call it maturity, that you have.
That's my favorite thing, I think.
Really?
Impacting the one, because I wish when I came in at the U, I had a lot of people definitely take care of me, and I was blessed. We had guys like Dalton Kincaid and Brant Keithy, Cam Rising, all of these guys who took me under their wing. You know,
Really?
Junior Tafuna, they were all bought in. They weren't acting like they were the man and above me, but they still cared. And so now having that, you know, leaving the U after 3 years, that's what I had with those boys. And now coming in, when you transfer in, you walk around with all the freshmen. You know, you're still getting all these guys coming out of high school, and you know you're a little different because you're older and you've had 3 years of college football.
You have experience. You know you can do it.
Yeah. But those guys, they're deer in headlights, and they're still trying to get through what this college life is and how to live football and school at this capacity. And I love sitting down with the one and making an impact with the one, because I think that's what it's all about. If you can impact a nation, but you can change one person's life, that changes their entire posterity.
And if you try to impact the nation, you're not going to get anywhere.
You're going to fall short.
You're going to fall short.
Yeah.
But if you try to impact the one, now you're making some headway, because you can help someone. The way those guys at Utah, we won't say their names, but the way they helped you, they took you under their wing.
For sure.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
All right, you said another thing that was interesting, because I've always heard the love and learn part of Kalani Sitake and the team's unity, but then you said humble and, my handwriting's getting really bad. Humble and
hungry. Yes, sir. I always believe that the lion climbing the mountain is hungrier than the lion at the top of the mountain. And that's one thing I love. I've been at BYU for a few weeks now, and that's the attitude is we're still climbing the mountain. You know, as much as we went 11-2, and I say we because I'm a part of the team. You know, I'm still trying to get used to that.
No, I'm glad you do. You need to. You're there.
Yeah. And so going 11-2 was amazing. Great record, you know. Definitely a climbing stepping stone for BYU. But to stay humble and to be like, okay, we still have room to grow. And hungry in the sense that, man, we want to go 13-15-0. We want that championship. We're chasing that. That's where that hunger comes from. And that's a part of that culture. There is the love and learn aspect that's, you know, respect the process, respect the individual across from you, all of those things. But where that passion and fire maybe comes a little bit more in is in that humble and hungry attitude. And that is something that BYU has that I'm enjoying being a part of, that I see the team is staying consistent with.
Raiders shared that same attitude with us yesterday.
Huh.
And it's kind of cool that you'll hear Kalani Sitake, for example, when the media after their bowl game, I assume that you followed the bowl game.
Yes, sir.
All right, so I think it was afterwards people were trying to induce him into saying we were disrespected.
Yeah.
It wasn't fair. We should have been, at least in the consideration.
Yeah.
And he chose to take it all the way up. Hey, we're going to take full accountability,
Mm-hmm.
and it's on us.
Mm-hmm.
You have to prove it on the field. And I wanted to say, hey, it wasn't fair.
Right. Sitting back and like, we deserved
We
that.
got ripped off.
Absolutely. The fans are not wrong in feeling that.
No, I don't think I'm wrong when I see the playoffs going on, and the national. Again, this will come out in weeks, and so the national championship will have already been played.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State and
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And this might be the first time. I respect tremendously Ohio State, but because of the Big Ten and the SEC kind of disrespecting everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
I want Notre Dame, that independent team, to win.
Right.
When was the last time I rooted for Notre Dame?
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Right. No, definitely. But yeah, that's definitely a cool matchup right now to see.
It is.
Going about,
Number 7 and number 8.
Yeah.
But you know what? And I'll say this, Utah had all that potential too. So I'm not disrespecting Utah. Some bad breaks happened, and Utah had a tough season.
Yeah.
A learning season. BYU, on the other hand, had no expectations at the beginning of the season, but that team came together, and it's fun that they're still the lion climbing the mountain
Yeah.
and not feeling like, hey, we're at the top of it.
Yeah.
It's good. But wow, with a goal of 15-0, all right, this is a life lesson because I'm going to knock on wood. All right, knock on wood, Lacey. New,
Sir.
I want you guys to go 15-0. All right?
Yes, sir.
If you take the odds of that at the beginning of the season, it's going to be not a super long shot, but a little bit of a long shot. So
sure.
What do you do when things don't work out for you as a player or for you as a team?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not, again, knock on wood, because I think you guys have all that potential. How do you take losses? Or how do you take when the guy in front of you knocks you down? I doubt if it ever happened, but you get pancaked.
I think a lot of people in that moment go to doubt. And doubt is such a strange thing because doubt is just in your imagination. It's not real. The goal is to go 15-0, right? To win a national championship next year. But who's to say that there will be no bumps along the road, right? That's what makes a great player or a great team great, is they handle the bumps that they face, the adversity that they hit, and then they become better because of it. And I think that's what greatness ultimately is. So loss sucks. Nobody wants to lose.
Right.
I hate it. I can tell my team hates it. That's what we don't want. We still feel bitter about those 2 losses. I can feel that in the locker room.
Oh man.
And
I feel I'm not bitter, but I say, what if? But go ahead. I interrupted you.
No, that's totally fine, because that's the genuineness of how you feel. Because that's how the team feels. And maybe a little bit more because they were the ones that were on the field.
Right.
But, that connection with BYU that all these people have, that you and so many other fans, they still feel the loss. So how do we handle that going forward is you just have to realize and take a step back and say and analyze that failure is a part of the process. Making mistakes, having loss is a part of the process. I've never met anyone that was great at what they did or heard of anyone that is the greatest of their respective career and they never failed. And I think that's what champions have. A lot of people look for what champions have over other people, but I think champions don't have anything extra. They have something less, and that's an off switch. They don't have the off switch. They're constantly driven. People want to, again, I'll reiterate that because I don't know if I explained it as well as I
No, I want to hear more. Your off switch. Explain that. Champions, excuse me, don't have an off switch.
Yeah. So everybody thinks that champions have this certain thing about them that makes them a better person, that somehow they're more talented. They have something more than the average human. But it's actually they have something less. They're missing something. And what they're missing is an off switch. Meaning, regardless of if they're on the field or off the field, they're driven. They're getting to sleep on time. They're eating the right things. They're having the right conversations. Those little minutes of free time, they're not wasting. They're finding ways to add value to their career, to their team, to their connections, to their individual growth. And that's where the lack of an off switch is what leads to a championship team, championship mindset. And that's one thing that I'm still trying to get. And I believe our team is developing day by day. But I think that's what makes people great.
I like that. You remind me, 2 parts of your conversation I hear remind me of something Steve Young told us. And he tells in his book and the stories of his most feared defensive lineman. Was it Reggie White? Reggie White, and he tells a story. Do you remember who Reggie White was?
Yes, sir.
Unbelievable DN
for sure.
This guy, and Steve tells the story that he'd be, the quarterback, and when I guess when Steve came into the NFL, he and Reggie White were in the same group, or I think they played in the same All-Star game together.
Okay,
they became friends.
Yeah.
He talked about Reggie White being a pastor in his church, a very faithful man.
Wow.
And he told me that Reggie White You could hear him a mile away. He was loud. He was grinding. He was just rocking and rolling, and there was nobody that could stop him. He was a mountain of a man.
Yeah.
And he said it was the scariest thing in the world, that he'd be in the pocket and he'd hear Reggie White coming. But he said Reggie had this special thing because he and Reggie were friends.
Yeah.
And so Reggie would sack Steve Young, but instead of jumping onto him,
Yeah.
Reggie White would take him onto his back.
Oh,
you
wow.
know, and to protect
To
Steve,
save him from the impact.
to save him from the impact, And because they were friends, then he'd say, "Steve, how you doing?" And Steve said, "Not so good right now."
I love that.
But he told that story, and they were friends and are friends.
Yeah.
I think Reggie White passed away. I'm not sure. But I love that story because, again, it was a love and learn.
Yeah.
He's coming at you.
Yeah.
He wants you.
For sure.
And then after he's tackled you, he says, "How's your family?"
That is awesome.
It was an awesome story. And yeah, he and his book, The Law of Love.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Here's one of the most competitive guys. And he talks about transactional love versus just the long-term caring about people. Enough about Reggie White, because you're a defensive tackle.
Yes, sir.
What does a defensive tackle do for the people who aren't real initiated in football? On the defensive side, you've got tackles that are usually lined up over the guards.
Mm-hmm.
So the center is the guy who's snapping the ball. The guards are right next to the center. The tackles are there. The defensive ends are right outside over the tackles and the tight ends and things like that. A tackle, therefore, has to, you're in the middle of it. You're battling the biggest guys on the field all day long.
Yes, sir.
Tell me what it's like being a defensive tackle.
It's the best position on the field.
Cool. Why?
I'm biased because you carry a big personality with you. It's not just about being a big factor in the middle, but it's about carrying a big, not just being a player, but being a pillar. A player is someone that's on the team. A pillar is someone that uplifts the team, that elevates.
And it's interesting to think that here you are in the middle of it, brother.
Mm.
You are taking on their biggest people.
Yeah.
When you get knocked down, a big hole happens.
Yeah.
And vice versa. When you pop through, when you control the man who's trying to control you,
Right.
You're wreaking havoc on that quarterback, enabling other people sometimes to make a sack or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So a pillar, I like that.
Yeah.
On and off the field, though. So you become kind of the face of a team.
Kind of. Your demeanor is adapted because it starts from the front line and it goes back. But if your front is weak, if your front isn't strong, if your front isn't someone that's willing to lay down and sacrifice and be a big presence up front, then it's only harder for those guys that are behind you and then behind them. And so it trickles down and then it gets softer and softer. And so that's why the front has to be a definitive, dominant personality. And that's why defensive tackle, I love it because it's more than just the impact of your play and performance. Because we're not the statistical players, right? We're not.
Yeah, you don't end up with as many sacks as other people. And,
No, sir.
And it's harder for you to get the tackles because most of the time you're being double teamed.
Right. But can I impact the play
Oh, man.
is our job,
Wow.
We can make it so the ball doesn't cut back. And that means he's playing on half of a field. So we didn't make the play, but he has not this half of the field now. So then all of our other 10 guys or 9 guys that are running to the ball because 2 guys are eating up 4 blockers, well, then that makes it so much easier for the guys behind us. So we're not the statistical player, but we are the player that has a big one. I would say one of the biggest impacts on the play itself every time the ball is snapped.
We're going to talk later. I this humble brag, brother. But later this morning, we have an interview with Jim McMahon. And I just remember how much he loved his offensive linemen. And at the Chicago Bears, he's the only Eli told me this, that Jim McMahon is the only quarterback for the Chicago Bears to have won a national or a Super Bowl.
Oh, wow.
And he's beloved. He was beloved in Chicago, and we loved him at BYU. But he always attributed his successes to his offensive linemen, and they're the guys who are sacrificing for all those guys who are getting all the stats and the accolades.
Yep.
So how do you, as a defensive tackle, everyone else is getting accolades. He got the sack, he got the interception, and you're eating up 2, 3, 4 blocks.
Sure.
I mean, I love your attitude because it's a self-sacrificing way to help a team accomplish a huge goal. So how do you go home and say, hey, I had a good game? Or I don't know, that sacrificing attitude, how do you help somebody, maybe a D-end who's going to be converted to tackle, and the D-ends get a few more sacks? How do you get your satisfaction out of being a tackle?
I think a lot of it is personal. Trying to think of the term. It's more so a self-fulfillment role. And part of that self-fulfillment comes from the guys that are around you. Collective fulfillment is, did I do the best? First and foremost, it's, did I give everything? That's where success comes from. It doesn't come from performing the best that you can perform, but it's being the best that you can perform. And sometimes it turns out that you do really well because you're giving your best, and sometimes you don't do that well. But if I gave my best, then I can go home feeling satisfied and successful, regardless of the outcome. Second is, aside from that self-fulfillment, is the collective fulfillment. The joy that comes from celebrating another is a shared joy. It's less of, and then that's the thing, is the greatest teams are one person and one mind and one soul and one heart. It's not just 11 guys on the field with 11 hearts, 11 minds that are now working together, that we can put all 11 into one, driving force and go forward. That's not what it's about. It's about, can we become the same mind? Can we have the same attitude, the same demeanor, the same opportunity that when we come off the field from a drive and my corner maybe got scored on, can I walk over and say, hey, we're in this together. I need you to get back on. We can't have 10 minds on the same one, and your mind is separate. Your heart feels down. We're fine. You made a mistake or something happened or whatever, but get back on the train. We trust you. We're good. Let's go forward. And I think that's where that fulfillment of a defensive tackle comes from, not in the statistics, but in the shared collective growth of the team.
That's awesome. All right, so you're a 22-year-old defensive tackle. This is your senior year you're going into. Is that right? Or
my junior.
All right, so
correct.
Can I commit you? No, I won't commit you to 2 years of BYU, but I hope so as a fan. These things apply not only, I love team sports. You just expressed the rationale for why one of the rationale for why team sports prepare human beings for the future, for life.
Yeah.
Not only at your work, but in your community, in your family.
Yeah.
You see that. So, all right, 15, 20 years from now, you've had a wonderful NFL career. I assume that's
the goal.
A goal.
Yes, sir.
How do you transfer that knowledge to your new team at whatever work you're doing?
I think I'm trying to begin with the end in mind. That's one thing that I learned in the scriptures that I love is, if I can share that on the podcast, of the scripture verse that talks about that the people who came before the Savior, right? The people that came before Christ, they believed in him as though he already was. So they knew that by making mistakes, they were gonna fall short. But there was no Savior before them. So us, when we sin, we can look back and say, I love that Christ suffered for me, so now I can repent and be better. These people were before him. So they probably had some worry, like, is his sacrifice going to work for only the people after him? Because he hasn't come yet. But they acted as if he already was. For me, that's what's the most impactful thing that'll impact my relationship when I am a father is if I can act like a father now to those of the individuals that are around me, is how can I be a husband and how can I be that now for my girlfriend, who's now my fiance, getting ready for those things.
Anticipating.
Yeah. And the same goes for my career after, is how am I going to get ready to impact the business people that I work with, the people that work behind the scenes, the people that do the nitty-gritty things that I may not be doing because I'll be in front of a screen. And how that happens is how I treat my team now. Am I just treating the guys like our star QB or the starting O-line or the starting defense as the man, but then the other guys, they don't mean anything? That's the characteristic that you have to begin with the end in mind and recognize that everybody matters. Everything that you do counts. Everything counts. And so your interactions in everything will develop into how you live your life later on. So how am I preparing? By doing it now.
It's awesome. Hey, we're learning wisdom. I don't need to go to Sunday school now and then. I just had a really good lesson from Keanu Tanuvasa.
Yes, sir.
What do you bring to the table in the locker room or whatever to help these guys get to that next level of continuing to climb the mountain? But, you know, I guess you never want to be the satisfied guy at the top of the mountain.
Correct.
You want to always have those achievement goals ahead of you. Mm-hmm. How do you, as a new guy coming in from the other team, first of all, I expect that you have already plenty of friendships on the team, but how do you affect this team to help them get to that next level?
I think it's really nice to come in and join this team from an outside perspective. But I'm a very vocal person. I love to talk. I love to communicate. And I think this game deserves to be played with a lot of energy and joy, which is the way I play it. You know, I love to talk to the crowd. That's what I do all the time. You know, I'm pumping the crowd. I'm hearting the fans, whatever I can. That's what I do. But that is driven from the relationships that I have in the locker room.
Yeah.
So for me coming in, what I enjoy that I bring is the lack of satisfaction because I wasn't a part of it, but
right.
the hunger to do it again because I recognize the capacity of the team. And so whereas some people want to come in and say, last year's done, it doesn't matter. You know, some people want to say, let's focus on how we can get better at the 2 wins. And some people want to say, let's focus on the 11. I think I can bring in a collective perspective to focus on all of the above, in the sense that I can tell them, man, you guys did great last year. You got 11 wins. How much better can we be now? Because you realize everything that you sacrificed then is now just the baseline. Because if you want to take it farther, you have to do that and more now. And so now with this attitude that's coming from an external source and joining the team, someone that competed against them, and I feel like I did pretty good in that game against them. So they have a respect of me. Now it's, man, I love what you guys did. I want to acknowledge what you guys did and give you confidence to say you're doing great things.
Sweet.
But can we do more? You now did a baseline. Teach me what we did last year. Now let's see where we can add more value, where we can increase our stock. And that is where I think it is a blessing of an outside source joining in, is to have that perspective of understanding that I wasn't the one that won those games. I'm now a part of that team and that culture, and I can accept the fact that these are amazing players and have amazing capacity, but that wasn't me. So I can acknowledge how great it was and acknowledge how much better we can be.
I'm getting excited. I mean, for me, August and September can't come soon enough.
Sir.
But for you, I mean, I remember the best teams I've been a part of, and I was lucky to be at a Rancho Cordova, California. Cordova High School had one of the top high school football programs for about a decade in the whole state. It was outside Sacramento, and had like 60-something wins in a row in the largest division. But back then, Northern California and Southern California didn't get to, the state was too big to have, right. Yeah. I mean, later they brought in the whole state playoff.
Yeah.
And then I was fortunate to play on some BYU teams that were unbelievable. we never had that undefeated season. We had 1 year or 2 seasons where we had one loss in each season. And both of those losses should not have happened. And yet I feel, and we collectively as a team feel, that we set the stage for what happened later in '84 when they did go undefeated. You are, and this team is following on that same path further up the mountain.
Yep.
And it does apply to life. What I wanted to say is your focus now, those favorite teams I had, it started now in January.
Absolutely.
And you'll have spring ball here soon, but then the summer continued that effort, that focus that you said. So how do you, as you still have school, you still have to collect those NIL checks and make those deposits in your checking accounts. Are you going to put in the work in the weight room, on the track? How do you guys, as a team and individually, carry on that work effort? What do you do?
So I think going forward, there's two main themes that I see that help teams to be great. Because I agree, it starts now. You're not great when you show up in the arena.
Right.
You're not great when you get to the stadium. You're great thousands of hours before. And so the two themes is to do more, right? And that's a theme that I agree with, but the second one is what I think is what makes people great. Is there is things that we can do outside of the facility. There's more training to be done. There's more lifting. There's more film study, connection, all of those things unifying that we can do. But sometimes I think it's less about what more can you do and how more deliberate can you be to the things you're already doing. And I think that is where power comes from. It's not always about how much more things can I do. How many more times can I stretch? How many more times can I train and push
How
this
much more
weight?
weight can I?
Exactly. How much more deliberate can I be in unifying every fiber of my body to lift this weight for the amount of reps that I'm scheduled to lift it, for the amount of drills that I'm scheduled to do so that I don't have to come back. A lot of people go to the gym to want to come back to the gym. I want to go to the gym to not want to come back. I want to go in to feel satisfied, to feel like I gave everything and be like, okay, I can walk away now for today. And I think that's what we're going to try. That's the demeanor and attitude that we're putting into this.
Good.
Give everything to what you have in that moment that you're giving it. More, you have more. If it's 3 sprints, everything of those 3 sprints, you don't have to run 4. If you want to, you can. But if those 3 sprints, you give 100%, when you're in the field and in the theater of the arena, and when you're in that game, you'll give 100%.
I think I'm reading between the lines that you're saying you're still going to live your life too. You're still going to be of service. You're still going to go to the dance with your fiance or your wife.
Yep.
You're going to be a genuine person.
Yeah. If you're not doing things outside of the facility with 100% effort, then it'll be difficult to trust you in the facility.
I tell you what, as a fan and an ex-football player, I still am torn sometimes when, we as fans want to see you guys just putting in every ounce of effort. And yet I, as an ex-football player and teammate, recognize that to be fully engaged, I can't just hit that same piano key and that's one of the things, again, as a fan, I'm looking down at the, when they're playing turbulence between the third and the fourth quarter, and our football players are dancing and excited and engaged with the fans.
Yeah.
I wonder what that position coach is trying to get knocked into the heads of his offensive lineman or defensive lineman. And yet I'm saying, you know what? These guys are confident. Mm-hmm. They're enjoying what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And you know what? They may be better football players when they're enjoying what they're doing.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
Absolutely. The great ones have love for the game. And
Reggie White.
Yeah, you have to be passionate. You gotta enjoy the moment, and that doesn't just come from aggression. It comes from positivity, and that radiates more than the aggression does. You can get angry, and your team will be able to reciprocate it to a certain extent. But when you're happy and you're upbeat and you're like, yeah, we got this. We can dance, we can mess around, but we can still stay laser focused. That's what radiates energy, and then it just uplifts and elevates. And people can misunderstand and think, oh, maybe they're not locked in, maybe they're not focused. But ultimately, that joy is what takes people farther. That joy of playing with your brothers on that field. That's what football is about.
I love it. And when you use, I love that you use the word radiate, because you are radiating all that enthusiasm and confidence. You're not right now radiating aggression, but I know, again,
I will when it comes time.
Yeah, when I'm walking through, the toughest part in my mission, one of the toughest areas was where Roberto Duran, one of the famous boxers, Chorrillo, Panama, and it's a tough neighborhood, man.
Yeah,
and that was in my mission. When I'm walking through Chorrillo, Panama, I want Keanu, my new friend, to be walking with me.
Love it.
Yeah, and so that aggression, that capacity, to protect, to defend,
yep,
to get the right things done, it's all in, man. I'm on your team, brother. So share with us. You've already shared so many insights and so much wisdom, especially for a young guy. Tell us your or any other stories that you'd like to share, or some of your thoughts that you'd like to share with Cougar Nation of what you've already shared a bunch of what drives you, but what's something that you've left out yet or that you'd like to share?
I've never, this is interesting, and it might sound off, and hopefully the people understand what I'm trying to get at in this sense. But what it is I'm not completely in love with the game of football. I'm completely in love with the pursuit of it, because I feel like it's the pursuit of those relationships with my teammates, the pursuit of connecting fans and players, the pursuit of a goal that's bigger than me, that I know I can't do alone. So football is just a vehicle, but the message, the meaning, and the power is the pursuit of it. Because ultimately, I'm not a character that I don't want to be seen as just a football player.
Good.
I want to be viewed as someone who pursues, who attacks, and who becomes. And so that's where my passion comes from. I know a ton of people that they're like, man, I stayed up as this young kid and I played with this football player, this toy. And I'm like, man, I didn't do that. But I found ways to train. I found value to play soccer when I was younger. I took seasons off of football to pursue soccer.
Really?
Yeah, I played basketball. I played these sports because it was the pursuit of progression that is more fascinating to me than any other level of some sport, because ultimately everything in this life is going to fade away. Other than your relationships, and your faith, I believe, your work's going to be done. Your money's going to be gone.
Oh, now come on. Knock on wood. All right, here we go.
I got you if you need some. Your clothing, whatever the case may be, it's going to fade away. But the pursuit of progression is something that is fascinating to me. That's what drives me. How much more can I do? How much better can I be for BYU, for the fans, for my teammates? How much better can I be to uplift that nutritionist or that trainer who may be having a bad day, but I know them because of football? So do I completely love football? Probably not as much as I give off. But do I love everything that is connected to it? Absolutely. And that's what I would share. If people want to know me, that's me. I love getting better in what it is. If you want me to, buy into someone's relationship, tell me what you want. I'm going to do it. I'm going to find love and value in those things. It's not the literal things, it's the pursuit of them.
Dang. Hand me the flag. I want to run out in front of you. And I'm, until I die of a heart attack, trying to run too fast.
You'll be good.
You give me great hope and energy, not only for our football team, but for the future. Thank you.
Sir.
And thank you for being an example, not only again to the football team or to just the students on campus at BYU, but to the world. When you do it one person at a time, and again, team sports gives us that chance to sacrifice, to enable, to help, to comfort. You're doing all of it, brother. Thank you.
I hope so.
And thank you for showing here at Beyond the Game.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching another episode of Beyond the Game. Remember to click here to subscribe and click here to watch our recent videos. Also, please follow us on social media. And remember, go Cougs.